Okay, now for our next session, it's all going to be about inspiration. Our industry is not all about global brands, but it's about the individuals and entrepreneurs that really make this industry work. And I'm delighted to bring up to the stage Robert Webb, General Counsel for Rolls-Royce, who's going to moderate a session with Surinder Arora, who heads up and runs Arora Hotels International and has been an inspiration to many. I was just reading a little bit about Surinder's business, of which I was for a while sitting on Surinder's board, and that is that his staff turnover is much lower than many companies because they consider it to be a family business. So, gentlemen, do come and join us on stage, and Robert Webb and Surinder Arora.
Gentlemen, see if you can guess which one's Robert Webb and which one's Surinder Arora. I'll start by introducing myself. Don't you learn a lot at these gatherings? I've learnt two fantastic things this morning. One from Richard Solomons, that the over 60s are now called the expansive midlifers who own more than half the world. I have missed a trick. We do know someone who owns more than half the world, and I'll ask him a question in a minute. Secondly, to hear Dr. Sentence say, of course, I've never worked in the city, only at the Bank of England. That's so like government. They're never quite there when you want them. Now, you must be Surinder.
I think I've got a bit more hair than you.
Surinder has something in common with Dr. Sentence, Willie Walsh, and me. His life is divided conveniently into three parts: before British Airways, and after British Airways. And I think I can say on behalf of all of us that life gets sweeter all the time. Surinder, where would you like to start?
Thank you, Robert. You just got me there now. I have to say I've enjoyed all parts of life before British Airways. I mean, I actually was lucky enough and fortunate enough to work for British Airways for 11 years in my younger days, and then came into the hospitality business by sheer accident. When we opened the first hotel back at Heathrow in '99, which was dedicated for air crews, and since then we've grown, and we've now got 16 hotels, out of which 7 we own and operate, and the others we lease out to Hilton and the other companies. I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, a family friend, they had a big house in Bishop's Avenue, had a number of hotels, and they lost everything in the last recession. And I used to say to my wife, Sunita, will do everything, all the different businesses. I used to dabble in property and everything, and I said, the one thing we'll never go into is hotels, hospitality. And I have to say, when I sort of opened up my little B&B at Heathrow back in the mid-90s, absolutely loved it. It was literally by sheer sort of, like I say, trial and error. I used to sell rooms for 15, 20 quid a night, and sometimes if I had an early arrival and I'm late checkout, I'll be there making the room up myself, and literally learning on the job.
How do you manage to scale that personal touch with the current scope?
I think it's something that I learned in my younger days when I was a football referee. That when I first qualified as a referee, I'd be out there with my red and yellow cards, so not enjoying it for the first 6-7 months. And then I read some stats, and they said nearly 60% of the referees actually leave refereeing in the first 8 months. Until a fellow senior referee came to watch me, and he said, Surinder, you're doing everything right, you're doing everything by the book, but you're not using law 18. And I looked at him and I said, Alfie, there's only 17 laws. Surinder, law 18 is common sense. And he said, if I walk onto the pitch, hopefully my ambition is to walk on with 22 players and walk off with 22 players. And if I want these players to respect me, I have to respect them first. So that's something, I guess, when I was looking for my first GM, I wanted someone who would be able to roll their sleeves up. I wanted someone who would be there to treat everyone like family. So we've always said in the company, let's treat all the staff like family, and let's treat our guests like royalty.
And you're addressing an audience which is as classy an audience as you'll ever get on the question of brands. When do you decide to be Aurora, and when do you want to go down market with sort of Sofitel and things?
I guess really, I'm not too fussed either way. It's whatever works. I guess the numbers work. It's right for the project. I started dreaming about the only hotel at Terminal 5 long before BA started inviting the bidders. And I remember approaching and talking to someone in BA Linton. I said, would you consider Aurora as one of the companies possibly to bid for the hotel at T5? And the question was, under what brand? And I said, Aurora. And he said, Surinder, forget it. We're building a £4.5 billion terminal. And it's got to be an international brand. It's got to be upscale, preferably 5-star. And that's when I started talking to all the companies, all the major companies, asking for a franchise. And most of them said, Surinder, you can build it, you can own it, but we must operate it ourselves because we want to protect the brand. And I didn't give up, kept on, and in the end managed to convince Sofitel, who'd never franchised, Accor, who'd never franchised Sofitel brand to anyone before or since in Europe. And they, I guess, looked at our product, did some mystery visits to our properties, and a couple of months later came back and said, Surinder, this is a one-off and would love to work with you. So, and now we start the new project in the next couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, at the O2 London Arena, where we're going to be building 450-bed, a dual brand. And I'm delighted to say we're going to be working with Richard and his team, that we're going to be doing that as an Intercontinental and a Crowne Plaza.
And this is an interview for inspiration. When people stay, well, normally when you stay in a hotel, the default setting on the television is our Italian restaurant is slightly less formal than our French fine dining, and this spa is like nothing you've ever experienced. The default setting on your hotels is Slumdog Millionaire. Do you want to take us from there to here, to the next stage?
Well, guess what? Starting from
where you are now, you're in Britain, you've seen the doctor sentence growth figures, you've seen the Asian gloom, you've seen a positive attitude emerging from former members of the Monetary Policy Committee, although nowhere near the city. What would you tell them to... what's the message of hope you want to deliver?
I guess I've always lived, and in my younger days, I was in my early mid-20s, starting off and dabbling in a few things, and I'd sort of been in this business literally for a couple of months, 3 months, and suddenly I thought it was the end of the world, crisis, not going to get anywhere, and suddenly this South African guest speaker came and just drew on the flip chart a wave and said, that's life. And I looked at the fellow next door and I thought, I think this guy's mad. And you know, when he explained and said life is all about valleys and hills, a lot of the winners, a lot of the people in the world would think that they're winners when they're on top of the hill. The real winners are down in the valleys. And if you can push yourself up once, you'll always be a winner. And every time, you know, we opened the Crawley Hotel. I mean, I'd done my Aurora Crew Hotel at Heathrow with BA, all occupied, guaranteed occupancy, good business. And then we were going to do a similar thing at Crawley Gatwick. We were going to build a 320-bed hotel. Half of it hopefully was going to be taken by BA, the other half by American. And suddenly, 6 weeks before the opening, 9/11 happened. And both the carriers, the numbers shrunk by more than 50%. So there we were sitting on a new product and thinking, where the hell am I going to get bums in beds? And I remember, you know, we worked so hard for the next 12, 18 months. And within 2.5 years, my team were knocking on my door saying, Surinder, we need more rooms. So it's really, I don't see this as all doom and gloom. Yes, we have to, I always say that, you know, if you're riding a bicycle and you come across either headwind or uphill, you don't just get off the bike and turn around and say, I'll walk away. Those are the failures in life. The real winners in life are the ones who are going to say, well, you know what, I'm going to have to pedal a bit harder, but we'll get there. And life is all about opportunities. And I guess where we are, and you worked through hard enough over the last 3-4 years, we'll all be there as winners at the end of it.
Surinder, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very nice to see you. See you again soon. Up to you. Well done.
Thank you.